And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hello, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Friday, May 9th, 2025. And we're going to start out with the setup here as of this Friday. There's an area of low pressure out in the lower Bering. There's going to be a stronger low come northward across the central Aleutians this weekend, and the front wrapping around it is going to bring warmer air, windy conditions, and rain to areas of the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula back toward the Pribilovs. Meanwhile, along the Gulf Coast, at least offshore, we find areas of IFR conditions Saturday morning. There is going to be a cold front brush the Beaufort Seacoast, eastern Brooks Range as we head it through the latter weekend, especially on Sunday. But in the meantime, there could be some IFR conditions along the North Slope and the Chukchi Seacoast there, especially from around Wainwright down through Point Hope. And as we get into Saturday afternoon, we start to see hints of that front dropping southeastward along the Arctic coast. This could have also some windier conditions with some light snow as we get into Saturday night and especially Sunday. Meanwhile, a pop-up isolated shower thunderstorm possible upper Tanana Valley, eastern Alaska range Saturday afternoon with the daytime heating. And then back to the west, we have the one low sitting out here with IFR conditions north of St. Paul up through St. Matthew. The other low still poised to the south, but you'll see a hint of that next low coming up from the south Sunday morning with IFR conditions over the central eastern Aleutians. And then as we look off to the north, IFR conditions expanding north slope, Arctic coast with that cold front that's swinging southeastward. And it will also have some, like I said, breezier conditions with some lower ceilings and light snow. We find some MVFR conditions over the southern half of the Panhandle. For Sunday afternoon, we find with that frontal system in the wake of it, some light snow, lower ceilings and visibility, and some gusty winds, especially east of Utqiagvik through Nuiqsut on over toward Kaktovik, is where we expect IFR conditions. And then much of the mainland along and south of the Yukon River, we're expecting VFR conditions for Sunday afternoon. Back to the west, we do find a broad area of IFR conditions over the lower and central Bering Sea that extend up from areas of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, up through St. Paul and St. Matthew. Pass conditions Saturday, we're generally looking starting off VFR at Anatuvik Pass, becoming MVFR in the afternoon. Same thing there. East Central Brooks Range for Adigan Pass, VFR becoming MVFR. And then right now, Lake Clark and Merrill generally should see VFR conditions there along the west arm of the Alaska Range, and that will extend up to the north and east across the central and eastern Alaska Range at Rainy Pass, Windy Pass, Isabel Pass, VFR conditions. As we get further east, Mentasta Pass should also see VFR conditions, but some cumulus buildups. The upper Tanana Valley and over portions of the eastern Alaska Range could lead to an isolated shower or even thunder shower with the afternoon and evening heating. Saturday, we're looking for Tanita Pass to be VFR there in the Copper River Basin, as well as Portage Pass down around Prince William Sound. And then further east, Chilkoot and White could start with MVFR conditions Saturday morning, giving way to VFR conditions. Saturday morning, we are finding freezing levels to be above freezing up along areas of the Kuskokwim and lower half of the Yukon River and the middle upper Tanana Valley, also extending up into the lower Matsu Valley. And as far as freezing levels aloft, a slight bump to just above 4,000 feet here over the lower Yukon and middle Kuskokwim for Saturday morning early on. And then to the south, with that next area of low pressure coming up from the south with warmer air, we do find freezing levels rise upward 4, 6, 8, and even 10,000 feet down there in the North Pacific. That low will be taking a track northward across the central eastern Aleutians as we get into Saturday night and Sunday. Icing potential is greatest along with some perhaps areas a little lighter snow, lower cloud cover here along the Arctic coast, Beaufort Sea coast above 3,000 feet. There could also be an area of moderate icing over the central southern portion of the Panhandle above 6,000 feet, and then with the one low that's going to be the first one that's sitting out here over the lower Bering, generally above 4,000 and 6,000 feet, but as that push of warmer air comes up from the south, we could find some moderate icing above 8,000 feet, especially along and south of the central and eastern Aleutians. Upper level jet stream winds, we have an anticyclonically curved jet core that reaches as high as 165 knots southeast of Kodiak Island. And then as we come on down to 9,000 feet, 700 millibars with the one low in the the Bering there, we do find some winds 35 to near 40 knots along the southwest. YK Delta is back toward Nunavik Island with a bit higher values there in the northern Bering, up to 50 knots. Another push of stronger winds in the mid-levels, 50 to 60 knots south of the Aleutian chain. And then at 3,000 feet, there are some winds with this cold front and trough that'll be rotating through the far north along the Beaufort Sea coast. Some winds upwards of 40 knots. And then we find the low pressure circulation over the central Bering, strongest winds out of the north central Bering, southwest of St. Lawrence, and hints then of the wind field associated with that next broader low that'll be coming up out of the North Pacific and crossing the central and eastern Aleutians on Sunday. So the threat for turbulence on Saturday will be confined to areas, especially the outer panhandle, western and southern areas. Prince of Wales Island surface to 6,000 feet, and then back to the west with the low pressure here in the lower central Bering. Saturday, there could be some moderate turbulence, St. Matthew, south side there of Nunavik Island, and areas of the Alaska Peninsula into the far eastern Aleutians, surface to 4,000 feet.